Okay, so we need to get set up with a Bandlab account. So let's do that right now. This is all online based, so it's all going to be in a browser. Heartily recommend using either Firefox or Google Chrome. If you do happen to be on a Mac, I do know Safari does have some compatibility issues when it does get into the actual music making part of this. So, nice and simple. Bandlab, Bandlab. There is the education version, but we're not going to be using that. We're going to be using the full stream version. I tend to use the education version in school just because it's easier for sharing resources and access within in-person numbers. Bandlab, make music online. That's where we need to be. We click on that. And perfect. So you'll find yourself on a beautiful screen like this. The person's picture may change. And yeah, quite simply from here, hopefully you'll configure out, you click on sign up. Your name, hopefully you know your name. If not, you have more issues than I do. And your email could be any kind of email address, whether it be Outlook, Gmail, but go ancient be Yahoo, have your AOL tags, things like that, and then a password. I'm just going to blank screen whilst I then enter my details, so I can then show you the next section. Alrighty, so once you have successfully logged in, you've gone through all the different, well, this is the instrument I play, or this is the type of music that I like, you're taken to your feed. Now, there is a social media element to Bandlab, which some people find useful. I personally don't. If I'm going to be sharing music, you're looking more at your SoundClouds, or if you can afford it, your Spotify's, or even YouTube, and things like that. But some people like to use it to share and collaborate, but that's something we'll look at a fair bit later on. So whilst you're in here, there's a few different things that you can do by clicking on your nameplate. So I've got an image for mine. So I've got my company image. And from here, you could do a whole variety of different things. You can look at past projects. So for me, there's quite a few because I've been using Bandlab for a while. You can see the various ones that I use in school or with other classes, look at structure, form, different musical genres. From here as well, if you have albums, playlists, they'll appear there just like in many other music streaming services. You can, of course, go to your settings, change your settings. So if you want to change your password, if you want to change your username, if you want to change any of your other details, email address, etc., yada, 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 this is where you can do that, which kind of helps. Other bits, fairly self-explanatory. Alrighty. One of the main things you'll find yourself using is your projects, because that's how we get back into work that we've previously looked at. The next main thing we do look at, though, and this is what I would argue is the most important part, is the create button in the top right. This takes us into our DAW, our DAW, and this is what we'll look at in a moment. Alrighty, so let's get into the actual DAW, the DAW, the Digital Audio Workstation, the main place where we're going to be creating many, many pieces of wonderful, beautiful music that, who knows, may make us some extra dollars, extra pennies, or your currency of choice. So we click on Create. Sometimes there'll be an extra drop-down menu, depending on which version you're on or which browser you're on. You just go to Start New Project. Don't use the AI. Not yet. So now we have, in front of us, we have the start of our music making journey. We can select the kinds of things that we want to be using. So some of these require inputs into the computer, whether that be, so if you're going to capture your voice or audio, you'll need a microphone. See that demonstrated here beautifully. So if I wanted to, I could then select that and then sing on Bandlab. I could then edit, or I could do other things with it as well, and could add that to songs or create my own 4-part harmony, whatever I really choose to do. Drum machine, how to create beats. That's one of the first actual parts we'll look at in the next session. Guitar, you could plug in a guitar, provided you have an appropriate input. Instruments, so you can either use a MIDI keyboard, which hopefully you can see just behind me there, which we'll be setting up shortly. And then you can use that to have access to a wide variety of different instrument sounds. The sampler, very, very cool, being able to use samplers, being able to change and edit them, to be able to create and personalize your own music. Again, we'll look at that a lot later. And then bass, very similar to guitar. Plug it into your computer, and then you'll be able to play bass exactly like that, only with an actual bass in your hands. You do also have importing audio or MIDI. So MIDI is just the language used to transfer the music across to record the music. Audio, so say if you had a specific backing track that you wanted to use and you're going to sing over, you could pull that into Bandlab and then use that as well. In the same way, if you have been using some other music creation software and you wanted to pull in the different stems, the different musical lines, you could then use that with importing MIDI as well. We'll look at that in a separate lesson, probably a separate topic later on. And Bandlab sounds, these are different loops that we will eventually look at. So we're just going to do a general tour of what is Bandlab, how does it work. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to click away just so I can show you what the DAW, so the DAW, Digital Audio Workstation, actually looks like, works and does. So a few different parts to it, some of them fairly obvious, some of them not. Apologies if any of this does seem patronising. I just want to make sure that everyone is coming away with the same level of knowledge, so there's no misunderstandings as we go on. One of the more important bits you'll use is the whole track bar up here. So play, stop, record, then you've got looping sections, and then number of time. Whole numbers you got here, these are your bar numbers, so it goes miles and miles and miles. You can have more and more on should you choose to. White thing here, this is your tracker bar, so wherever you have this and click play or click record, that's where it's going to start. Majority of the time, you're going to want it right back at the start. If it is over here, you want it to get back to the start, tap on stop, and it goes all the way back to the beginning. How handy. You could add a metronome, so click track, so something that will help to keep you in time if that is something you find particularly useful. Through here, you can change the various different settings. The beats per minute, so how fast or how slow your piece of music is. It'll do 120 as a standard. You can make it faster by having a bigger number, slower with a smaller number. And you can change the time signature if that is something within your knowledge. If not, there'll be other courses designed about that in the not too distant future. Adding tracks, so how we're going to add things on. More about that later when we actually start playing music and such. Overall volume gauge. So volume for music, especially indoors, is represented through dB, decibels. 0 decibels is good. Obviously, go lower if you want it to be quieter, higher if you want it to be louder. You tend not to want to have too much gain, so higher numbers, just because it can really affect the quality of the sound that you are using. What we'll eventually look at is this thing called peaking, when this will eventually change beautiful and lovely colours. If it goes red, that's dangerous. We don't want that. Saving the work that you've done. Publishing, making it so that other people can see it should they choose to. Starting session, you can collaborate with other people. That's something we may look at a later date, who knows. Zoom out so you can see more, zoom in so you can see less, but get like a bigger view of whatever it is that you're working on. Drop a loop audio MIDI file. Those will be demonstrated later. Lyrics and notes, so you can write notes here. Hi there, I am using Bandlab. Press it again, it goes away. Bandlab sounds, these are the various different loops we'll look at. MIDI mapping, not something we need to worry about just yet. And chat, if you are working with other people, you could use that there as well. All these down here are related to the instruments, which we'll get onto in just a moment. So what I've done is I've exited, then come back in. So we're now back at this roughly familiar part for us now. So we're going to start off by looking at the drum machine. We're going to lay down some beats, which is the foundation of what it is we're going to be making. So we simply click on it, and we are given two wonderful beats. These have the imaginative name of beat A and, you guessed it, beat B. You would never guess what the third beat is called. It's C. So it will give us two beats automatically. These are the same two beats each time. It's not randomized, it's just the same two beats each time, and they sound like this. That's beat A. Beat B. So just like we mentioned earlier, we've got the volume control up here. If you want it to be quieter, put it down, louder, put it up. You see that's going red. Red is not good. You don't want red. Two bits up here mean that they're peaking. That means it's gone too loud. Now, this whole bottom section here, this is the control center, or whatever instrument you're using. This whole bit in the middle here, this is your main workspace. This is where your recorded music or your sequences or your loops, this is where they go. This is where everything will be layered up so that you can edit, change, and use to your heart's content. So, let's look at how this instrument works. I said earlier, so the drum machine is a sequencer, which means you input a sequence and then it repeats it. Simple as that. You change which pattern you're on by clicking where it says patterns, A, B, the two ones we have there, C, D, E, F, G, H, and so on and so forth. We're going to start with beat A. You could also do this by selecting them manually. You can see they are selected by the white border that is around them. With these, you can move them around and change them, but we'll do some more funky things with that a bit later. So we're going to start off with beat A. In order to make your sequence, in order to make your beat, you have to change the pretty colors that we have down here. If there's something already there, you click on it and it goes bye-bye. If you click on a blank space, something is added there. If you want to get rid of all completely, you right click, clear pattern, or if you want a Mac, control click, clear pattern. The way this works is that when you press play, and we've got a play button right here, which is just for the drum machine, this white bar will go across. This is the tracker bar. Whenever it encounters a coloured dot, it plays whatever part of the drum kit that dot is lined up with. So this, in this instance, is the hi-hat. Now the great thing about this play button, which some of you may have already noticed, is that it's going to put it on a continuous loop. It's not going to stop until we tell it to. This means that whilst it's going, you can add in bits whilst it's going to make sure that it sounds alright. Once you're happy with what you've got, you can then click stop. The great thing is now, our beat A up here, if we go back to the start, is going to play exactly what we just wrote. We can see this lasts for 4 boxes or 4 bars before then going into beat B. Already been made for us, but we'll get to change that in a little bit. Now we've already got this kind of EDM style sound going on, which is the 808 drum, which is what it always defaults to at the start. What we can do is we can change that sound depending on what type of music, what style we're looking for. So I quite like my rock and heavy metal. So if I'm going to go into drum kits, so you've got drum kits, these are more for your live, your pop, your rock, country, blues. Drum pads, these are electronics, so whether it be for EDM, dubstep, drill, grime, all these different kind of genres, depending what it is you want to look at. Some of them have some more obvious names, so blues is going to be a blues-based kit. Some of them don't. Some of them have some very strange and unique sounding names, like Boom Bap Classic, Fat 90s, James Allister, his name of the random producer, whose name is associated with this drum kit. If you're not certain, you just click the play button, so drive, dry. It's actually pretty good, might have that. That's bottom enough, let's have some hard rock, why not? Now you might see that this one here, the clap feature, so there's no claps on the hard rock kit. So what we can do is we can go in, we can change it to something else. Let's have a cowbell. Always need more cowbell. So what happens if we have cowbell instead of hi-hat, why not? Put that hi-hat back in. Put the open hi-hat in there as well. Let's now change the sound. We didn't like that, we can go in, change it again. Let's go to lo-fi. What's that other one I had? A drive? Quite like that, I'm going to keep that. So that's now my beat A. If I then wanted to, it's going to beat B. It's a clear pattern, I have a lot of hi-hats here. Great thing with this, like I just did, if you hold down your mouse and just drag it, it will just keep going continuously. You can do this to make some crazy and interesting patterns, but they'll sound a bit less professional, shall we say. the standards that I always tend to see from students both in school and with other means as well is I want all the colours. Whee! It's so pretty. And I will warn you, this is just going to be a lot of noise. Hold on. Isn't that lovely? You can do pretty pictures, diagrams. We will eventually go into how to make a professional sounding drum beat. Part of this is just experimentation. Whole host of things you can do. Let's try that. Cool, take that. That's my beat B. So play those together. Beat A. And beat B. I'm quite happy with those. So give it a try. Have an experiment. Try and make some sound to the drum beat. If you're wondering that it sounds a bit too chaotic, a bit too much, then just try and restrict yourself. Use just the hi-hat, the bass, and the snare. Those are the foundations of any drum beat. Give it a try. See what you can do. Okay, so now that you've made your drum beats, however it's sounding, whatever genre or style you're going for, let's look at the next few things that we can do with it as well. Now, most pieces of music don't tend to be 16 seconds long. Tend to be a little bit longer than that, just a smidge. This is just the default that Bandlab has given us. So what we can do is we can change what we got. We can change the length of what we got. We can move these individual parts, so we can see how these are all clustered together. So all the A's there, B's there, and so on and so forth. We're just going to move the B's up to number 17. So just clicking, dragging, and dropping. Then what we're going to do is we're going to extend. So we're going to make A longer. If we click on it, on the top right, we should see this lovely little loopy symbol. By clicking on that and then dragging it, it's getting bigger. Look at that. Where'd it go? We're going to take that all the way to bar number 17. This gives us 16 full bars of a drum beat, as in section A drum beat, which is also a drum beat. I'm confusing myself. Then I'm going to do the same with B. So take that up to the end of 32. So that should be 16. Is that right? Can I count? 2, 4, 6, 8, 12, 34, 56. I can count. Yes, winning. Mass qualification wasn't for nothing. So now we're thinking lengthwise, that's 1 minute and 4 seconds. So if we were to think of A as our verse and B as our chorus, we'd be well on the way. That'd be fantastic. What we could then do, say if we are thinking about verses and choruses, we want A to come back again. So what we can do, go to pattern A, click on add A, it adds 1 in, and then we can go all the way up. That's what it'd be. 16 plus 32, 48. Right? Yeah. Sure, so enter 48. Then we do the same with B. That's what, 64? Yeah, enter 64, 64 inclusive. That's 2 minutes and 8 seconds for 2 verses, 2 choruses. Intro, outro, bridge / solo. There you go. Got a song. We've just successfully made a drum beat to a song. So beat A is now going to go on those 16 bars. Beat B is now going to go on for those 16 bars. Let's go return to beat A, and so on and so forth. We have now successfully made a drum beat. Well done. Okay, so now that we have our drum beat all nicely set up, it's time to start thinking about, okay, we have a song, let's add some more things to it. So here's how we do that. Click on the Add Track button, located just top left here, and we're going to go down to Virtual Instruments. This is the same menu we had at the start, where it's in that kind of big square in the middle of our DAW. Now it's just in a slightly different format here. So Virtual Instruments is what we need. Now we have a grand piano. Just like the drum machine defaults to beats A and beats B, same every time, you will automatically be given the grand piano, most common instrument. You have the keys down here. Click on them. Makes pretty plink plonk. You should hopefully be able to see at the bottom, you have various different letters. These aren't the note names. These are just relevant to your QWERTY keyboard. Press those notes down, or letters down, and they play notes. Isn't that lovely? So you can either use mouse, which are kind of restricted to just one note at a time, or use the keys on your QWERTY keyboard in order to do so. You can hook up MIDI keyboards like the one just behind me, which we'll do a little bit later. But if you happen to not have one because they are a cost, then you can do this way as well. There are a few different buttons, few different things on here to understand as well. Mode. And these are kind of things that you could experiment with and just see if it's something that suits you. It just makes it so it's a bit easier to read if you're not used to using a keyboard. I've been playing the piano since I was about 3-4 years old, so this is comfortable to me. This makes me happy, makes me calm, happy place. You can change the key, you can change how it kind of is presented. Lots of this are some slightly more advanced theory terms. These are things that I'm going to cover in separate courses dedicated to the theory of composing. Octave is important. Lower the number, the lower the pitch, so lower down it is. As you go higher, higher you go. When you find that there are grayed out bits, this means the instrument physically cannot play that. So if you click there, it will not do anything. Normally, you want to be around octave 3. C4 or C3 tend to be good places to start. Now you can, as kind of demonstrated there, change it whether it be the QWERTY letters or the pitch. These are the official note names. Musical notes are named A to G, then they just repeat. So A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and you just have them at different pitches, so how high or how low they happen to be. There are sharps and flats, so that's the hashtag and the little B symbol, but we'll cover those at a later date. Sustain's quite fun. Press the shift key to engage it, and then it will hold on notes for longer. You let go, let's go of the notes as well. You can change what sound you're using on the left hand side. So this opens up a much bigger drop down menu. There are hundreds of instruments that you can play with here. So many different sounds that you could use. You could have a drum kit. A little bit less accurate, but you can go into editing and change it if you want to. Really useful if you're trying to make fills and things like that. You can have various different guitars. So you can have an acoustic guitar. Pop the octave up a bit. A whole variety of different sounds. There are a lot of really, really funky synthesizers. If you're not certain what they sound like and don't want to faff about like I just did, click the play button. Get examples of the kind of things that you could play or you could make. Same with synths, voice, you get the idea. There are a lot of instruments here, there are a lot of things to play around with. Right hand side, you can change the volume of that instrument, make it louder or quieter. You can do the same up here on the panel on the left hand side with the individual instruments. Depending if you want some louder, some quieter, up to you. Have an experiment. Pan and reverb and effects we'll cover at a later date. So now, if you wanted to, we could play our drum kit. You can start to play, use, and record. So, have an experiment, have a faff, see what you could do. Alrighty, so now we're going to attempt to play some chords. Chords in music, it's when you play more than one note at a time. So a chord might be 2 notes, 3 notes, 4 notes, 27 notes, 126,000 notes, however many you can physically have. We're going to focus on 3-note chords called triads. So that we don't have to delve too much into the theory behind this, at least not just yet, we're just going to follow one simple rule. So I'm just going to use my QWERTY keyboard for this. And so I'm just going to start at the bottom. I've gone for a dance lead. I've changed my drum beat to sound a bit more EDM-y just because I felt inspired by the sounds that I had. So I'm going to start off with a Z here. So I'm going to play 1, skip 1, play 1, skip 1, play 1. Just focusing on those white keys, those white notes. So play 1, skip 1, play 1, skip 1, play 1 at the same time. That's the sound we should have. I'm then going to pick a different starting point. So I'm going to start here on this B. As in the keyboard, the QWERTY keyboard note B, letter B, that's the word I'm looking for. So play 1, skip 1, play 1, skip 1, play 1. Going to follow that pattern. So you should have going to use 4 chords. So play 1, skip 1, play 1, skip 1, play 1. Then from a different starting point, different white note, you can choose your own, doesn't particularly matter. Play 1, skip 1, play 1, skip 1, play 1. There were different starting points. So we have 4 chords. We have our chord sequence then. So we're going to start. What we're going to do, we're going to record these in a moment so we get introduced to the recording function. So we can now try to play 1 chord at a time, go record, and then see how that goes. So in order to record, big old red button here. Click that, you'll have a click track in. It'll start playing the other instruments that you have as well. If you did not want the other instruments playing, you could press the M button here to mute, or the S button here to solo. Solo meaning just that instrument will play, so that's particularly useful if you have 12 instruments and you're recording a fresh one. You then don't have to mute all the others. But if you just have one other, you can click mute, or if you have a few that you want to use, you can mute them, and so on and so forth. Now I'm not playing anything, but you can still see this white bar is moving forwards. This is what is recording. So I've gone into section B. How exciting. If I press stop recording, nothing there because I've not pressed any of my keys, so there's nothing there. This time round, we're going to press record. I'm going to stop recording. I tend to use spacebar to stop recording, so if I'm using my keyboard anyway, it's just there. It's nice and easy. And look, this has got 3 lines in it. 3 lines, 3 notes. That's recorded beautifully. Isn't that marvellous? If you don't like what you got, you can always click it and delete it. So press delete on your keyboard and it goes away. I'm going to attempt to try and record them all at once. And then we'll try another method to show you what would happen if you're less confident doing that. That might be a bit of a skill check for some people. So, see, I've already messed that up there. So I missed a key. Wasn't happy with that. I'm going to click delete. When in doubt, try again. I'm going to remind myself of the notes I'm using. Practice makes perfect. 2, 3, 4. Now you're aiming at this stage just have them each chord, so each set of hell notes going on for a whole number. That's a whole bar. So first chord, bar 1, so 1 to 2. Second chord, bar 2 to 3, and 3 to 4, 4 to 5. If you're finding it challenging to do those all in one lump like I just did, there's another method. Just go do them one at a time. So I'm going to press record. And then we're going to stop. That's just recorded our first chord. For some reason, I've done one note. Let's remedy that. There we go. 3 lines, 3 notes. Double check that. Perfect. Now, this next step, wherever you have your tracker, so your white bar, that is where your recording will start from. So I remind myself now that my next chord is that one. So I can press record. Gonna stop it, move my white bar. Okay, so next we're going to be looking at the MIDI editor. MIDI stands for Musical Instrument Digital Interface. It's a term that we end up using quite a lot when using DAWs, and we're going to learn today what it is, how it works, and also why we use it. Let's go with the why first. So, with the chords that we've played so far, let's have a little listen. They just sound a little bit off, don't they? They're not quite right. What we could do, instead of having to re-record, which is what we were doing if we're having to do this live or analog, because we're working digitally, we can, whatever we've made or recorded, we can change, we can edit. The MIDI editor is such a powerful, such a useful tool. I use it every day in my composition career. There's a couple of ways we can get to it using Bandlab. The easiest is just to double click on our chord or chords, depending on how we have it, or we click on the MIDI editor bottom down here at the bottom left. If for some reason you haven't got this menu down here, by clicking on this little setup down here, you can get those back. Now, there's a few snags that might come up along the way, and we're going to address those first. Now, what we have from how we recorded previously, because we were feeling less confident or less comfortable with using the keyboard or the recording functions, we did all these as individual recordings. What we now need to do is to merge them together so they're all as one big box instead of these 4 small separate boxes. Nice and easy. We're going to click in the blank space next to them, drag over them. You can see they're all lit up. They all have that white border. Right click, merge regions. We're merging them together so that now there'll be one big white box instead of 4 smaller boxes. So here they are, 1, 2, 3, 4. Select them together, merge regions. Now they're all one big white box. The reason we do this is when we then go to the editor, which you can see down here. If we want to move something past the boundary of its box, it won't let us. It's like it has this, when it has that like a little square around it, it's this border which nothing can pass through. Go full on Gandalf with, "You shall not pass." But if we merge them, whee, go as far as you want to. And this leads us into how the MIDI editor works. So these individual bars are the notes that we've recorded. We've made 3 note chords. So in each of these chords, there are 3 bars, 3 lines. These lines match up to keyboard notes on the left-hand side. From here, you can change, you can move, you can make them longer, make them shorter, you can delete, you can add. There's a lot of different things that you can do. There's quite a few options on the left-hand side here, whether it be selecting, creating, or changing the velocity, the volume, but we'll cover those probably at a later video when we look at more intense editing. For the purposes of what we're doing here, let's just keep it nice and simple. If you feel more confident, you could explore and to your heart's content look at all these different things that can happen. And honestly, it is one of the better ways to learn. It's just go crazy, try and break it. We have the little grey bar here so we can scroll along. Obviously, we've only got 4 chords, so we don't need to worry too much about what's over in bar 212. What we're going to do is we're going to click on a note, and from here, we could then drag it to the left, right, up, down. I get some very pleasant noises at the same time. In order to make this to match up with our drum beat, now a drum beat which doesn't really change, it can't have too many errors because it's a sequencer. It's based around the various different beats that are available in each bar. So we're going to try and make sure that, in fact, no, we're not going to try, we are going to make sure that our bars start at a whole number. You've got these whole numbers up here. These are all to do with the bar numbers, so bar 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. And they're beat numbers, so beat 1, 2, 3, 4. Bar number 2, beat 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on and so forth. So if we just shift these, they all start at a whole number. Have a bit of a laborious task, depending how off you are. Then we press play. Those are actually sounding better already. They're matching up with that drum kit. There's a few of them that are slightly different lengths. Now, sometimes that might be intentional, but for us this time, it is not. So what we're going to do, if you want to make them longer, you have to hover your mouse over the end of the MIDI note until you get this little icon here, and here you can drag as much as you want. What we're going to do, we're just going to leave a tiny bit of a gap at the end, just to allow for a bit of a breath. We're going to aim to do this on all of them. Now, if you happen to have some here that are all the same, let's say, for example, these are all the same. I'm going to type it off for the purpose of this demonstration. You can select them all and nudge them, move them all at once, which saves you having to do them all completely individually. Some people get really, really pernickety, like they want them to be exactly on the line as it is, but sometimes with the ends of notes, it's less of a preciseness. The start is more where you need to be. They need to make sure they start at those whole numbers so that it sounds properly in time. That sounded pretty good. Liking that a lot so far. So, we have just successfully edited or changed our MIDI notes. If, for example, we had a mistake, if we can double click on a space there, we got a note there that we don't want, click on it, go to your QWERTY keyboard, click delete, it's gone. Say, yeah, bye bye, nice knowing you. Same way like I just did, if you want to add in a note, double click, you can then move it, change it if you want to. Want to copy, you can paste, a whole host of different things you can do depending how crazy or advanced you want to get. So, we have just made our notes more accurate. We've done some editing. We've done some changes. Now, we've only got 4 chords there. And if we want these to go on for the entirety of this section A, the same as this drum beat, normally we'd have to re-record them, right? Wrong. Not today. Let's make life easier. We don't need to re-record. Recording can be probably one of the more challenging parts. We're going to loop these. So what happens? We have this lovely little circular icon with an arrow in the top right. Click that, drag it that way. It's going to loop whatever it is that you've made. So just to prove that. Cool, first cycle. And now, same thing again. No re-recording needed. Common errors you might find with this, if for example you have like a random gap at the end, no matter how big or how small, whatever state this box is in, when you click on the loop and drag it, it keeps everything that you've got there inside of it. It just assumes you want to keep it all. So if, like me, you got this gap from kind of bar 5 until nearly to bar 6, we don't want that because that's empty space. That's just going to sound rubbish. Keep that in. You'll kind of, well, you can even just see it. It's there. There it is. There it is. We don't want it to go away. You can shorten it by instead of clicking on the top here, just down the bottom. We can make this span longer or shorter. We want shorter in this case, up to the number 5. From here then, we loop it. Beautiful. In the same manner as well, if there happens to be, if any of your notes are off time or not quite right, that's going to be the same throughout as well. So that's going to be the same here. There it is, got that gap there. Don't want it, not okay. Let's go back, rechange that. So loop it all the way up until section B. Or we can say I did a boo-boo there, too far. Let's drag that back. Try again. Always good to listen, make sure, check. There we go, that's better. Next time round, we'll jump it up a little bit. That's sounding nice and secure. What we have here is 4, 8, 12, 16 bars. Or what normally you might call a verse or a chorus. We'll come to that a little bit later. And that then goes into what will eventually be section B. You can see we've got all these different verses and choruses here, but we'll cover those at a later point. So that's the MIDI editor. Going in, you can either double click or click on where it says MIDI editor. Scroll bar at the bottom. You can shift, change, move notes around. Once you have done the loop, you're then unable to change the ones that you have looped. So if you do to change them, you got to scroll back, change, then scroll up again until you got it perfect and just how you want it. Have an experiment with the MIDI editor, see what you can do. Next time we're going to look at adding a bass line. Okay, so we have a drum beat, we have chords. Next thing we're going to need to do is we need to add some texture, so some different layers to this. So we're going to add in a bass line, nice low-end instrument. We're going to keep it nice and simple. Just want those extra sounds, that thickness to the texture. So we're going to go to Add Track, like we've done before, and Virtual Instrument again. So I'm going to make sure with the instrument panel, I'm going to click on, let's do for electric basses. Could do synth basses, but I tend to have more luck with the electric basses. You could choose either or depending what kind of sound it is you're after. I don't know, maybe I'll change my mind. I haven't decided yet. I tend to go for electric bass legato. Now basses, they will often be a much quieter sound, they're much more of a background sound, but they're an incredibly important sound. You can already hear there, it's not that loud. Sometimes it's worth bumping it up. You don't want to go too crazy. You don't want it to be just full bass. We'll look at EQ adjust a lot later, which is where you can change the different bass, treb, and mid levels as you need to. Now, in order to make this match up with the chords that we've got, there's a few things we can do. One, we can try and remember what notes that we played. Or, much easier way, because I'm all about making our lives easier, is to go to our old friend, copy and paste. So this is going to lead us into a few different techniques that we can use. First thing we're going to do is we're just going to copy these chords into the bass line. Now we're not going to play bass line, we're not going to play chords in the bass line. Try to remember how that worked. Because basses tend to just be single notes. Because they're quite low, quite rough sounding. If you try and play too many notes at once, it just sounds a bit, just sounds like flub. It's not that nice. So there's a few different ways you could do this. You can either use the old right click or control click if you're on a Mac, and go to copy, and then go down to make sure you have the right instrument line highlight. See on the left hand side. So drum kit, chords, bass. Wherever you click paste, it will paste whatever you want wherever your white track line is. So you can either make sure it goes back to the start, or you can move it where you want to manually. Right click, paste, and I'll pop them all in there. Other way around is keyboard shortcuts, which I'm a big fan of. So Control C or Command C if you're on a Mac, and then Control V. Boom, there you go. Either way. Now, starting off, just listen to the bass line. Probably ain't going to do too much. Because, if we look at the MIDI editor, the bass is a low instrument. It cannot play that high, unlike our synthesizer. So therefore, we have these grayed out bits, can't play them, don't exist. There's a couple of things that we're going to do. We're going to need to make them lower. But before we do that, I mentioned we only have one note at a time playing for bass. So let's do that first. This is already looped, so we can take this back to the start, so we don't have to keep redoing things. We're going to select the two top notes of these chords and delete. Two top notes and delete. Two top notes, delete, two top notes, and delete. This way, the bass note that we are using matches up with the root note or the lowest note of our chords that we played up here. So it's guaranteed to match up and sound, most of the time, pretty good. But we still have this problem where this one plays, This one plays, these other two don't. That ain't okay. We need to change that. Now we can either select them all and drag them up and down. The problem is with doing that, that opens us up to more errors. So what we're going to do, we're going to transpose. Transpose just means to change or to move. So by clicking on this is our box, we go to right click, transpose. We're given a different number of semitones. 12 semitones is an octave. So that's going from one C to another C, or one A to another A, or one B to another B. That's just going down to the same note name, whether it be lower or higher, plus or minus. A semitone is just going down or up the next available note, whether it be white note, whether it be black note, pink, fluffy, whatever. So if we transpose this down, it's easy to see this in the MIDI editor. Oh, where have you gone? There you are. Accuracy on my mouse wheel. So by transposing -12, that's going to go down. And now that's going to play. Let's solo that. That sounds pretty good. I'm tempted to see what would happen if we made that a little bit lower. Transpose. That's still playable? Yeah. Is that too low? Maybe. Let's experiment and find out. So now we're going to see how that sounds to the rest. Just by hearing the background and that nice bit of texture. Does that sound better, or does it sound better an octave up? I kind of like both, to be honest. I'm tempted to say I'm going to have mine as an octave lower, just because then it adds that extra layer to it. It's that lowest note that's a bit weird, that first and last note. You know what? I've got an idea. I've got a plan. I'm going to manually move. Yeah, we could just move both of those up an octave. The rest stays the same. Oh, I like that. I like that a lot. Good thinking. What do you say so myself? So then we drag that way. Yeah. All matches up. Sounding pretty good. Nice. Big fan of that. Big fan of that. So we have drums, we have chords, we have bass. We pretty much have our accompaniment sorted. So remember with that, so we did copy, we pasted it, we then deleted the extra notes, we then right click transposed, move down up or down 12 semitones, so an octave, so going from the same note length to the other. We then at the end recognized that those lowest notes were just a little bit too flubby, technical term, so then just move those up an octave themselves, and now we have this pretty cool sounding bass line. Very happy with that. Give it a try. See what you can do. So next step. So now that we have an accompaniment, so we have drums, we have chords, we have bass. Now we're going to look at actually fleshing out our song. So we have our A's and B's in the drum beat. These help to signify our verses and choruses. Going all the way up to bar 65, 2 minutes and 8. That's not a bad length for a song. We're missing some intros and outros and bridges, but those are things for another time. Let's just focus on bulking ourselves out. So I've mentioned before, let's make our lives easier. Let's do that exactly. All of our A sections are going to be the exact same. So we have our chords, we have our bass line. Fine. Let's copy those. So Control C. Command C if we're on a Mac. Remember, we take our tracker bar to where we want it to copy, which is for us the start of the A section. Then we paste it. Let me paste. Boom. And do we have any more? Or is that the last 8 seconds? Just the 2. Perfect. So now, if we zoom out, we can see we have 2 quite chunky filled out sections. Lovely. Now, if we just had the same thing going on for all 2 minutes, even if we did eventually add in a melody line or some loops or things like that, that would be fine, but it'll be a little bit boring, a little bit repetitive, and we want to avoid that. We want to show that, okay, so we're at section B now, we're at our chorus. There's clearly something different going on here to make it seem more interesting. Now, for the purposes of today, we're still going to keep using those same chords. We're just going to change and vary them a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually still going to copy and paste in those same chords for these 2 sections. We're going to take the loops down. And now, instead of having to re-record, we're going to just go into and change and edit. So currently we've got these long-tailed notes. Let's change this. Let's make them shorter. We could either do them as... Yeah, we could do them as... let's have a little look-see here. Something like that, or we could... Sure, let's spread them out. Let's separate them out. Let's go crazy. Let's make it sound a bit more cool, a bit more interesting. So in order to do that, so once again, we're using these white bars inside. Let's have these going for 2. Would 2 work? Then we can add 1 more in there. I think we want them a bit quicker than that. Let's make them 1 square. How's that sound? Yeah, cool. And again, to save us having to input things again, go in, copy, move our white tracker bar, paste, save our work again. Go back to that start. Then we're going to do the exact same for the rest of these above as well. Yeah, cool, I like that. So do 1. You really want to make sure that you line these properly, otherwise it will be really obvious. Ba 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 ba. Move the white tracker bar. Good. View. Then select those, copy, white tracker bar, paste. Nearly there. So this is the slightly more laborious part when it comes to music creation, but it can really, really pay off. Especially people who are like less confident, less secure on things like keyboard. So now, make sure that sounds alright. If we wanted to, we could change those as well. Ba ba ba. What's that? That's cool. Yeah, sure. Why not? We can stretch that out until the end of that section B. Now let's look at that bass line. Let's have these. Again, basses you want to keep nice and simple. Yeah, cool. And what I'll do is just double clicking in. There's about matchup. I'm not happy with that change. Just keep it as is. So I'm starting to get into my what would happen if mindset hat on, but that's not quite the stage we're at just yet. Now, do you want it as longer. So that should have them a little bit shorter. We can have them bum 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 bum. Let's actually do that. I'm actually happier with that. So we can go like that. Yeah, happy with that. So let's shorten all those down. Doing that. Just double up on the ones. Oh, that's it. Move over there. Could always just copy and paste them and have them move appropriately, but there. I'm a fan of clicking. I was playing a lot of FPSs. Alright, let's give that a try. Cool, let's stretch that out. Now, we have those two bits. Copy, paste. Now if we stretch out now, through just a simple bit of editing, we now have a whole proper accompaniment. We have a nice long help bits. Sounds good. Still going. Obviously, it's just missing something, isn't it? And that is the melody. I thought that was a chorus. Just take it up until where it just then flows into the next verse. 4 more bars. 3, 2, 1. A transition needs working on, but that's when we start adding in like fills and leaps and things like that, which is something for another time. Last main thing that we are missing is the melody, and that's what we're going to look at in a little bit. Okay, so now we're going to add the melody, arguably the most important or most recognizable part of any song. The melody is the lead part, the most important part. If you got a song with a singer, they are usually singing the melody, the main tune of the piece of music. So far, we just have accompaniment. So we've got drums, we've got chords, and we've got bass. Now we're going to add a melody line on top of that. To make life easier, what we're going to do, we're going to add a new instrument on. What we're going to do, we're going to use the same instrument sound as our chords, just to make it familiar. We might change it later. Let's see how this goes. Easiest way to do that, say if we don't want to kind of go to the whole add track and yada yada yada, you click on the 3 dots here. We can go down to duplicate track. Now, although it gives us the kind of chords, we can just get rid of those. Doot, doot, doot. Doot. And doot. It conveniently puts it just that little bit underneath our current track as well. Maybe we could always double click in here and rename. Maybe I'll just call this melody. Melody. That's all the others actually. Chords. And bass. Just good habits to get into. On other DAWs, you can actually color code them, which is very, very satisfying. Anyway, so one of the trickier parts of melody is making sure that it fits your chords. Now, I gave you the advice earlier when making chords to just stick to the white notes, play one, skip one, play one, skip one, play one. So I'm going to give you a general rule that you can use. And in one of my later videos, we're going over the actual like theory crafting as to what chords to use, how to know which ones to use, and how you can get appropriate melody with that as well. We should have approximately 4 chords, because we're aiming for a 4-chord pattern. So for me, I've got this one here. It's going to work for me. There we go. So it's that one there. I've then got that one there, that one there, that one there. Our goal is with the melody is to try and use those notes, but just not obviously just having the same chords again, because that would get a bit boring, a bit repetitive. If you just kind of had that at the same time, that's not a melody. Melodies are usually individual notes. Usually individual notes. And what you want to avoid is this thing called clashing notes. So say, for example, if we look just at the little bit down here, the keyboard here, these are the notes on my chords, and I'm playing this note here. Sounds a bit odd. You got that clash there, you got those non-harmony notes sticking in. That's what we want to try and avoid. Sometimes they can be really good as a kind of a quick step. So what's called a passing note, a quick step, and then go back to... They're going back to one of those main notes of the chord. Just adds a little bit of flavour, if you will, to whatever it is that you're playing. Anyway. Rule of thumb when it comes to melody writing is, so whatever your root chord is, for us, it's this C major chord here. If we look here, letters C, E, and G. We go back to the regular keyboard, it's B, it's Z, C, and B. It's taking the first 5 notes, the first 5 letters, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Obviously not all at the same time, because that's going back to those clashy sounds that we had earlier. And actually what we're looking at is we're looking at writing in blocks of 4 bars. So that's up until we get to number 5, conveniently laid out by this white line that we have in our chords here. So taking those 5 notes, which are... taking them, playing them in any order. Sometimes you might need to... having some long, having some short. Let's experiment around. So what we're going to do, if I click up here, this is going to create a little looping section which we can move around. And it's just going to restrict it to these first 4 bars. I'm just going to let those play around once. Something like that. Got that first one. Quite like that. So we stop there. So I got that. Bum, bum, bum. So I can press record. Big red button up here. It's going to give us a count in. Some long, some short. And pause it there. And look, it's recorded. Now I imagine, just like with everything else we've done, we're going to need to go and edit it. So we double click. Oh, it's not bad. Make sure it's matching up. Shorten that one. Put that one. See how that sounds? Quite like that. Quite happy with that. Now, here's where some of the tricks come into some good melody writing. Lots of repetition. Now, I don't just mean we kind of go, yep, happy with that, and then have that copy and paste the whole way along, because that will get very boring, very dull, very quickly. And we don't want boring, we want interesting, exciting. Instead, we're going to loop and repeat 2 of those bars. So far we have... So now we have to figure out what to finish off. And it's going to be a slight variation of what our last 2 bars were here. So we had da da da. That was. So we got whole things. Change it a little bit. So ba ba. Yeah. Ba, ba, ba. Yeah, I like that. So I go ba 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 ba. Try that. Time of that is going to be horrendous. But we go in, we edit, we change. slight resolution at the end there. Let's see how that sounds together. Could we do something filler between? I'm quite happy with that as it is. So let's just listen to that melody line, just so I can really focus on those changing bits. See, starts, first ending, then it's going to go and repeat. Variation. All together. Nice. Repeat. That sounds a little bit more interesting. Now we've got this kind of bit tacked on at the end here. And, oh, can we do this? I can't remember if this is a thing we can do, so we should be able to. We can merge them together even better. So let me just show you what I just did there. So we got this little section here, the separate recording, and this bit which is looped. What we're going to do, similar to what we've done before with the chords, is we select them both, right click or control click if you're on a Mac, and then we go to merge regions. This is now turned into one big box, so if we want to then we can just loop this, and then that's our section A's done. Let's have a look. Let's repeat and variation. Loop. Lovely. So next we've got the challenge of, okay, so this is going to be our A section. So once again, we can copy. We can go to our A section and go do it. Oh no. Let me copy it. Rude. I must have pressed the wrong bit. Copy. Paste. Paste. There we go. So now we've got to figure out our melody for our B section. And we're going to use the same principle, the same process. I think that's slightly off. Up in there. Nope, it's fine. We're good. There's just a slight gap at the end. Got a bit worried, but we're okay. So, same process, same idea. So we're using so the notes are spread out a bit more to help this stand out a bit, because it's meant to be, let's say this is our chorus, like you mentioned earlier. So if we move the octave up, so again we're thinking about how can we want to maybe extend it a little bit, we can do, but that's down to personal preference and experience. I'm still going to stick with my law, using those 5 notes. Cards do quicker on the QWERTY keyboard. Again, a little experiment. We go back to our little loopy icon, this bit here, and then pull this up here. We can have a little bit of an experiment of faff using just those notes. So let's take the tracker bar back here. Like that. Yeah. Yeah, I quite like that. Kind of ba 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 ba. Let's try that. Okay, so it's going to be a bit tricky to edit, but we can still go in and experiment away. Away, away. That's going to be a harder one, so what we can do that way. Okay, the little trick with the shorter ones in the bow. Well, that isn't too bad. If you find yourselves wanting to move these and they're going to be outside of where those lines are, what we got to do, where's the tool for it? It's going to be snap to grid. So go to settings, snap to grid. If you get rid of that, we can move these around and we can put them anywhere. We're not restricted by where these grids are. What we could do is we can zoom in closer. Try that. That's better, because you can zoom in closer, you get even more lines. Who doesn't love more lines? Because that's now going to do it at exactly that halfway point. Let's make sure they're all doing that. I wonder if I've never tried this before. What if we put the snap to grid on in here? Yeah, it does that as well. That's really handy. I've learned something today as well. Oh, good. Make sure we have less overlapping. Just makes it look a little bit neater, sound a little bit neater. There we go. Try that again. Nice. Exactly the same rule as last time. We do 2 bars worth. Go ba 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 ba. Let's see. Something like that. We go a bit crazy. Yeah, sure, a bit classical sounding. Why not? So we got. Da ba da ba. Sure, why not? Ah, no, timing's off with that. That ain't gonna work. So I got bit shorter. Is that too similar to the previous one? Might be. Yeah, it's almost identical, so I want to do something a little bit different. Rack my brains. We could even do the opposite instead of speeding it up and make it more complicated. Let's just do a small difference at the end. Why not? That's not bad. Similar but different. Ba, ba, ba. Edit, edit, edit. Zoomy, zoomy. Let's try that now. Yeah, we'll take that. We can then, same process, doot, click, and merge. We can then copy. We can then copy. and paste. So now if we look, we have quite a few blocks. That's a fairly big and chunky song. So if we listen to the two sections together, not bad, and repeat. And section B. Yeah, I quite like how that ends now. There we go. So we've got a melody. There's many more things we could do to it. We could start to add extra harmonies, extra layers to it. We could have the melody bouncing back and forth between different instruments. But I think those are slightly more complicated matters for another time, for another course. But now we have drums, we have chords, we have melody, we have bass. We have two clear different sections. We have verses and choruses. Within an actual song, there are introductions, there are middle eights, there are pre-choruses, there are fills, there are links, and all these other different things. But I think for a starting point of where we're at, this is particularly good. This is a good thing to be aiming towards. I'm thinking lengthwise, if you're someone who's wanted to kind of go, well, I want to start creating my own music, but 2-3 minutes is a long time. Just through, as we can see here, just through 2 verses, 2 choruses, following appropriate theory lengths. We've got 2 8-bar phrases in each of them. So 16 bars per section. We have got 2 minutes and 8 sections. Now we could slow the speed down. We could speed it up. That would change that as well. We could add in extra little bits, intro, outro. These are all many, many things that you could find when we start looking at more complex structures in some of my later courses. But have a go at some of the melody writing. Remember, keep it nice and simple. So just using those first 5 notes. Remember, trying to match up with whatever chords it is that you've used. If you've used the same chords that I have, then please just follow the same ones that I did. So, boop, 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 boop. Have a go, and then let's see what we can do next time as well. Okay, so let's look at some of the extra bits that we could use. These are the kind of the hidden features, if you will, of this course. So whereas we've already looked at how to create and make our own bits and bobs, now let's look at some of the pre-made things that we can use and explore, and in some cases exploit, that Bandlab has. First of which we're going to use is the loops function. So these have the charming name of Bandlab Sounds. So from our main menu here, we can simply click on Bandlab Sounds, and this whole big thing pops up on the right-hand side here. I'm just going to move myself. Where should I go? Let's go over here. Whee! So that we can see what's available over here. Loops are pre-made little snippets, little chunks, little pieces of music that you can use to add in, layer up. These are things that are already created by other people, so if you are hoping to use these to go out and make your own millions, there's going to be some copyright issues there, but they can be quite fun. It's a good way to experiment with texture and to explore certain genres and such as well. Really nice and simple and nice and easy to use. They're particularly accessible on the mobile app for Bandlab. So it's located down here. If you happen to be in this menu here, by simply clicking on Bandlab Sounds here, then it pulls up the menu as well. This kind of front page will change every month, and it's a whole variety of different pack genres here. We want to make sure we're in the packs menu. If you go to loops, it will just give you kind of like one-shots, which are fine. They're just a lot harder to navigate. One-shots are usually just a single drum hit or something like that. But packs is the best place to start. You have little filters here, so you can filter by character or via genre, and then you can also change whether it be like the more recent ones or do it via names in alphabetical order and such, or as it says here, got some of the numbers to start off with anyway. So let's go with, as I look at specific genres. I mean, normally I kind of go for lo-fi, so let's push myself out of my comfort zone here. Let's go for some electronic. So I saw there was some synthwave just a few moments ago, or some 8-bit stuff, so that's always quite fun. But say, yeah, I was born in the 80s, so let's go for some 80s synthwave. So we can just type in synthwave in the search bar, not in the shirt. That's something very, very different. Retro future synth. So if you don't know what it sounds like, press the play button. That's pretty cool, not gonna lie. So is that. Which one? First or second one? That one. It's kind of more like the synthwave, like relaxed videos you tend to get on the YouTubes and such. And you are given a whole big option of different loops that you could use. Once again, drop down menu, filter them by instrument is my personal way of doing it. So I'm going to start off with some drums. Press play. That's going to be our intro. Start off with that. So what you do, you demonstrated that further. So you find the one that you want, go away. You drag it and drop it to where you want it. Left click, just drag it to where it says drop a loop or audio MIDI file. From here, much like we've done previously, you can extend, you can loop it, have it going for as long as you want. Let's have this one going for 2 bars. And then we're going to go into different drum beat. Sure, why not? Should be able to take that straight there as well. Again, we can loop that for as long as we need to. Let's go to, what's that? It could be 16, 18, 19. Exclusive. So now we've got. Perfect. Let's move away from drums. Let's now go add in bass. Sure, why not? Oh, I like that. So pop that into a new line. Just click set for these, just makes sense. Have that going. Let's have these matching up length, make life easier. Boom, boom. Okay, that's kind of cool. Oh, we've got to get a little synthy synth after that. Let's pop in a synth. What we got here? Sure, let's see how that sounds. Not 100% on that, but let's see what happens. Okay, I'm happy with that. Let's extend those all a little bit because that's started to get quite funky. Do it and do it. Come back, moved accidentally, boop, and then boop. Want some kind of arp or arpeggio to then go with that. But I think I'm having a lead in at some point. Might have those coming at the same time. If that one fits the one we're going for, drag and drop that. See how that sounds. Yep, we like that. And then let's have lead. Doot doot. Try that. And that one. Got that at the same time the ARP comes in. The arpeggio. So a little look see. Change the volume to the left hand side. And then you can start to think about sections later on. So we just layered that up. So we could then quite easily just go, right, boom, let's have the other drum beat that we're looking at. That one. Squoosh, squoosh. Then some more synthy synths. You have the same ones as you start to lay a whole bunch of different stuffs up and around it as well. The volume controls here on the left is really important because some of these will be incredibly loud, some will be incredibly quiet. You can kind of start thinking around with the auto pitching here and such, but that's just one of those things of where it's just best experiment away, because you can start to change the pitch, change the key of it. One of the best things you can do just with any piece of kit or software just in general is to just faff around and mess about, and you will find some of the coolest things. But let's just have a listen to this just until we get to the arps and synths. Got a cool little intro. Love that 80s reverb on the snare. Sounds nice and dirty. Very cool. At the end of like an 80s arty action film as the credits start to roll. That's cool. So those are the loops, or Bandlab sounds as they're called here. Find a genre, find a type, whether you're into your synthwave, your metal, your drill, your grime, your hip hop, your lo-fi, whatever it might be, there'll be something to satisfy you within here. Have an experiment. There's some very, very cool, very funky sounds here, and to see what you can do with it.
So that's our look at Bandlab, and thank you very much for engaging, and thank you very much for participating. Be on the lookout for many more courses. Now that you've got a grasp of the basics on using a DAW, now you can start to branch into different areas of music, whether it be your own personal genres of choice, the other areas, whether it be that you start thinking to yourselves, yeah, this is something I want to do, this is something I want to engage with, potentially start making some money and start building a portfolio. Who knows? But be on the lookout for more of our lessons which deep dive into some specific genres, and then we'll be looking at some other more professional DAWs as time goes on. Thank you very much. I look forward to seeing you soon. Take care now. Bye bye.